Carolina Cobras.
If I take that field, if my game starts to slide, I have no fear. If my brother got my gun.
Catch them all season long.
That's all we got. That's all we got.
On your home for Triad Sports.
You're listening to The Rundown.
They're missing some parts, but Clemson's had the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class in the country, it feels like, or at least top 5, the past 4 or 5 years. So it's not like they don't have kids on the sideline waiting for an opportunity, like 4 and 5-star kids that we haven't heard about. Some talking heads out there have said, whoa, this Clemson team, they don't have T. Higgins, they don't have these wide receivers. What are they going to do? They're going to just plug in the next 2 guys.
Exactly, like they did the year before. The year before when Mike Williams was there.
You don't win 10 plus games a year for this will be like the 10th year in a row if they do it this year. You don't do that by depending on 1 or 2 guys and having to reload, and then 2 years later you're back. Clemson's been steady the whole time. From Sammy Watkins, before Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins.
Sure.
They have wide receivers. I don't even know what the names are going to be. I ain't even worried about that. Trevor Lawrence will find them.
The Rundown with Desmond Johnson, Saturdays at 10 a.m. right here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Charlotte out of timeout. Here's Morning, the shot. Game over!
He's going to get off. Here he comes. Here he comes. He's got him this time. It's going to be a drag race. They touch. Craven got him.
By Lundquist. Now Ponikarovsky with it. 2-1 in front. Block there. Scramble for it there. They plunk away at it. Still it's loose. Pump that like Homerton. They score! And Green. It's over.
The runner at third, nobody out in the first and didn't score. Second and third, one out in the second and didn't score. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game.
Welcome to The Score. Here's your host, Brett Wiseman.
Welcome to a absolutely scorching hot edition of The Score here with Brett Wiseman on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccaroadsportsradio.com. Here in North Carolina, where we're about 6 inches from the sun, it's 98 degrees. I haven't caught fire yet. We're getting there. I'm sure to spontaneously combust by hour 2. Joined by Desmond Johnson, our producer, and Christian Emery from an even hotter area of the state. That would be Raleigh. 2 pieces of breaking news. One semi-breaking about an hour and a half ago. This report just out. The NFL planning to argue for a significant suspension of Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson over, we know by now what it is. The thinking is they're going to argue for a full season suspension. That report coming out from the Washington Post about 10-15 minutes ago. The other big piece of news, at an announcement for a branding extension with Stephen Curry's arm of Under Armour, Davidson head coach Bob McKillop announced he is stepping down and retiring from college basketball after 33 seasons as the basketball coach at Davidson, which included coaching now NBA champion Stephen Curry, which segues nicely into where we'll recap the Golden State Warriors' decimation, shall I say, last night of the Boston Celtics, taking that, as Desmond correctly predicted, by the way, in 6 games. Guys, I felt like the first half of the first quarter was kind of even, and then that back half into the second quarter, Golden State goes on that 21-0 run. It wasn't just one of those. It wasn't just one of those runs that doesn't end up having an effect later on in the game. That was just as much psychological as it was an impact on the scoreboard, because to me it almost seemed like that was Golden State flexing its championship pedigree and putting the final foot down and squashing the bug, so to speak.
That's exactly what it was, and I kind of expected that to happen. It was funny to me when this series started how many people were saying that Boston was the better team.
And I'm sitting there thinking, well, how? Like, what have they done to prove they're the better team?
Talent-wise, no. The only way they could win this series is how they made it go this far, which was they had the size. That was the only advantage.
Yeah, and the only reason why they had size is because Golden State's size they're all like 19, 20 years old. So I mean, that's really that was the only thing. And like I just sat back and listened to pundits go on and on about how Boston should win this series and they're the better team and blah blah blah. And I'm just sitting there like, Golden State has like a top 10 all-time player at the back end of his prime playing. They've got one of the best shooters of all time playing, one of the top defenders in the league playing, and they've found these like cast-offs and like young kids. Basically, I look at the past, well, they say 3 seasons, really the past 2 years. So 2020, 2021, that's the equivalent to me of the 90s Bulls 94, 95 seasons. Like all it's going to do is recharge the Warriors for another window of 2 or 3 more titles because they got a chance to basically reset everything. And now they're going to have Steph, Clay, Draymond in their early 30s. Like Jordan won his last title with the Bulls at age, 36, I think it was. So they're right there. And I don't see anybody with what they have coming back that's going to be able to match
James
up.
Wiseman hasn't hardly played.
He didn't even play this year. Wiseman didn't even play the number 1 pick of the draft.
The number 1, they were so good that they didn't even need the number 1 overall pick. They didn't need him.
They didn't use. I mean, Wiseman didn't play. Moody didn't play in the finals. Kuminga didn't play in the finals. I mean, everybody's kind of locked. Clay's
can we say something about Jordan Poole real quick? That dude, I'm telling you, I don't think anybody saw that coming, but he played great all year. He showed out, especially the last 2 rounds of those playoffs. He and Andrew Wiggins both, but more specifically Jordan Poole, because it's not a name that we really looked at on this roster all year. But you mentioned the other guys like Kuminga that stepped up all year and just kind of came out of nowhere. Speaking of coming out of nowhere, Draymond all of a sudden decided to have the best game of his life almost last night and really made an impact, not just offensively, but defensively.
Yeah, and I mean, Draymond's
he was all over the floor last night.
Well, they smelled blood in the water. You can kind of tell after they knew they were going to get a punch from Boston at the very beginning because they're in the Garden. It's in Boston. I think the 85 Lakers are the only team to have finished the NBA Finals on Boston's floor. And they came out with the
until last night.
Until last night. And they came out with the intent to impose their will on the Warriors. And the Warriors took the blow. And that 21-0 run or whatever run it was, that's the biggest run in finals history. Like that's never happened before what the Warriors did last night. And I'll be honest, man, I was not surprised when it went down. Like they sucked the soul out of the Celtics. You could literally watch it on TV. The Celtics looked defeated when they went.
You saw that run. They called 2 timeouts. Boston had to call 2 timeouts in the course of that run. You normally don't see a run go long enough to where. Yeah, turnovers hurt too. Thank you, Larry. That's good point.
3 games in Boston gave
turnovers hurt them the last 3 games of the series, especially down the stretch in Game 5. They had a chance to steal Game 5 on the road, but they couldn't hang on to the basketball.
And Jason Tatum basically looked like, imagine Kobe early in his career with the Lakers without Shaq, and that's what he looked like to me. Where he was rushing a lot. He would get high. He was real streaky. He'd get hot for a little bit. The Celtics are at their best, actually, when they play like they did in Game 1, which was like
when
a mirror image of the Warriors.
ISO ball. Yeah,
right. When they're moving the ball around, and Games 2, really from Game 1 on, they stopped passing the ball that same way, and Golden State realized, hey, we're Golden State. This is what we do, and the proof is in the pudding. Like I just felt like the Celtics would get 1 in Golden State, and I felt like Golden State would get 1 in Boston, and that's literally what happened. And hell, this might be a repeat next year. It could be Golden State Boston next year in the finals.
It could be. And look, Golden State's not going anywhere. Here's what they did that's different than what a lot of other teams and franchises have done in the past when their, quote unquote aging core was starting to get older, getting hurt here and there. They didn't blow the thing up and rebuild from scratch. They waited on those guys to come back. They waited on Klay Thompson twice, and now it's paid off. Look at somebody like Oklahoma City. They traded James Harden because they didn't think they could get anything for him if they didn't trade him right when they did.
Well, with James Harden,
imagine if they don't blow that thing up.
They didn't want to pay the money at the time, but they didn't know that the cap was going to rise after they traded him, where they could have still kept them together. So that's probably the number one thing that happened to that Oklahoma City squad, where they, in theory, should probably all still be together. But
the biggest example for me is, we'll keep it with Boston topically, the late 2000s, early 2010s Celtics teams. After the 2010 season, Garnett, Pierce, Ray Allen, they were getting old. They were, becoming injury prone. And Danny Ainge said, blow it up. We haven't seen the Celtics get back to the finals until now. Granted, they won that trade. They swindled the hell out of Brooklyn because that's probably the dumbest trade in NBA history. That's like Lou Brock for Ernie Broglio type stupid, but...
Yeah. I mean, they kind of, in a weird way, built the Nets to what they are now, because
they did.
Because then the Nets turned around and traded off Garnett and Pierce and got picks, and basically used those picks to build what they eventually got, Spencer Dinwiddie and all those guys, and then eventually landing Kyrie and KD in free agency because of it. So they, in a weird way, Boston kind of built the Brooklyn Nets. But my
point is, Golden State has shown more patience in there being a fall off, right?
Well, they have a bigger wallet too. Did you see how much they're going to pay in luxury tax? Like people keep saying they bought this championship, but I'm like, that's ridiculous. They drafted the majority of this team. Jordan Poole was in the G League for like 5 years or something nuts.
Kuminga was a lottery pick this past year.
Kuminga was a lottery
Wiseman,
pick.
Wiseman, the number 1 overall pick. Yeah.
Moody was a pick. Pretty much the whole team was drafted there, and they've played themselves into a position of making more money. Like, I wasn't insulted by what they did in the post game. Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins were talking about they're about to get the bag or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Because Golden State can afford to pay them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially if they keep winning. I mean, they're gonna keep winning like this for another couple of years. Why would you break it up? Like see. Do you ever see like those weird NBA trade things that happen in the summer? Like it'll pop up and be like, here's a trade idea. LeBron to the Nets for blah blah. And it's like, what?
The ESPN's contractually obligated to discuss the NBA so many hours a day to keep its media rights deal kind of trade ideas.
Well, no, it's not even that. It'll be like from clutch points or something like that, where they're just doing these random trades in the middle of thin air. And you're just like, that's not even possible. Like, why would you even, like, Kyrie to the Lakers or something like that? There's no reason to break up Golden State. I just saw LeBron talk about he wants to play for the Warriors. I'm like, dude, are you trying to be pushed out of the top 10 all time by just being, like, clingy? Like, is that where are you trying to do this? Because let me ask you this. After last night, is Steph in your top 10 all time?
Oh, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Who gets kicked out? Like, who is your top 10? Because my top 10, the guy that got kicked out of it was Wilt Chamberlain. So and I can make an argument for why. So who's in your top 10?
I'm going to agree that Wilt would be the one that got kicked out.
Which is nuts. The man averaged 50 points per game for a season.
In my mind, Wilt didn't have the sustained success as a player championship wise.
Right. He won 2 times.
A lot of these other guys did. He only won 2.
Yeah. And Russell's the main reason for that. Like Russell won 11. So
that's why Bill Russell's in my top 5.
I don't have him in the top 5. I have
him at 5, but
I have Jordan 1, Kareem 2, LeBron 3, Magic 4, Kobe 5, Russell 6, Duncan 7, Curry 8. Who am I forgetting? Shoot, I'm forgetting 2. And Shaq is like 10. I'm forgetting somebody. Maybe Wilt is still in my. No, Bird. I'm sorry, Larry Bird. Larry Bird is or 8. Yeah, and all those in the top 10 for me have at least 3 championships.
Yep.
All those guys have at least 1 league MVP.
If anything, Wilt Chamberlain playing in Philadelphia all those years hurt him.
Well, he won one of them eventually.
He didn't start really winning until he went and played with Jerry West in L.A. So.
Well, even that. They went to the finals like 5 or 6 times and only won once with Wilt. The 72 team.
Which is why Jerry West isn't in my top 10, and he's the freaking logo. I mean,
LeBron gets more credit for finishing in second than any other player I can think of in NBA history. I just had this argument on Facebook 30 minutes ago that because people were like, nah, it's too soon to say that he surpassed LeBron. I'm like, is it? They both got the same amount of titles. Steph has 2 league MVPs. He's the only unanimous league MVP in history. Jordan,
and I believe he's on a very short list of guys that have won league MVP, finals MVP, and all-star game MVP.
Yeah, it's like him, Jordan, Shaq. I think Kobe is on that list. There's another list too where it's like league MVP, NBA finals MVP, and scoring champion. And there's only like LeBron.
That's
Curry,
an even shorter list that he's on.
Yeah, so. It's like LeBron, Jordan, Curry. I think Shaq's on that list. There's only like 4 or 5 people on the list. So like last night he entered a different territory than where he was, and I already had him borderline top 10 before last night. I have him securely in my top 10 now. Like, dude's gonna play another 5 years.
He entered that upper echelon, no doubt about it. So here's my top 10: MJ, Kobe, LeBron.
Is this in order?
Yes.
Okay.
Shaq, Russell, Steph. Who am I forgetting here?
Bird, Magic.
Kareem.
You got Kareem at 10th?
I have Kareem at 10.
I'm gonna need you to explain. Why's Kareem 10th?
Maybe it's my modernity. The fact that the back half of guys I wasn't alive to see play.
I didn't watch Wilt Chamberlain play, but I know enough to know he's sniffing around my top 10. He was like at 5 at one point last summer, but
I'm gonna be honest. When I read off my list, I forgot Kareem existed there for a second. So it shows you how much I watch the NBA. That shows you how much NBA I watch when the Hornets are out of it.
I mean, like
how much NBA I watch that's not the Hornets.
Somebody like Karl Malone, he's like in my top 15. He's the second leading scorer. Well, third now. LeBron took second. He's the third leading scorer in NBA history.
I don't think about guys like that as much. I think about people like, I don't know, Detlef Schrempf, Sean Kemp, Gary Payton. These people could have white chocolate, Jason. People that are good cards in 2K. Like 96 overall white chocolate. Like automatic.
My point was after last night, it feels like people are trying to protect this pedestal that they put LeBron on after the Lakers title 2 years ago. Like they had put him in this position where he could legit
He's been kicked off of it. He's been kicked under it.
Now, but back then it was like, okay, that ring put him into now he could be in the conversation of maybe he is the GOAT. Not that he is, but now he could legit have the conversation. After the past 2 years,
Stephen Curry, if anything, maybe not the GOAT conversation, but he's kicking in a door.
Like Steph is making a point of who's really the greatest of this generation.
Right.
Like, is it LeBron? Because Steph has a sweep on him in the finals. You know, like Steph has that unanimous MVP. LeBron doesn't have that. Steph's been in the finals won 4 out of the past 8 years. LeBron doesn't have a streak like that.
And the only time he lost is when LeBron pretty much beat him single-handedly. So
pretty much, yeah. I mean, well, no, it was the only year the Cavs were fully healthy when they got there with Kyrie, and because Kyrie had a lot to do with them coming back from 3-1, and Kevin Love. But LeBron hasn't done it with a homegrown team. All of LeBron's teams have been pieced together for LeBron. This Golden State team was put together around Steph from scratch in the draft, and key free agency pickups. But I guess that's going to be the question going forward. Like, who should be like considered the greatest player of this era? Because you can't be the GOAT if you're not the greatest player in your own time.
I think, and this brings up another question. I know we got to get in the break here in a second, but it brings up another question of, all right, what model as a championship aspiring franchise in the NBA do you want to follow? What model best suits you to follow? Is it the Golden State model to build around a star player in the draft, or is it to go out and trade and spend a whole ton of money? Like there's one of two ways to do this, and the former is working out a lot more successfully than the latter right now, and that's Golden State. 4 titles in 8 years, And a very small handful of these guys they brought in have been free agent signings or trade acquisitions. Andre Iguodala has been there forever. He was signed as a free agent. Andrew Wiggins was brought in a trade. Look.
It's a great trade, in fact.
It was a fantastic trade.
Yeah.
And when Golden State makes a trade, it's a big brain move. So
as soon as they got him, I was just like, oh, man, Wiggins is about to take over that Harrison Barnes, Kevin Durant small forward.
He had that's the exact role they had in mind for him. Mm-hmm. And this year, more than any other, he played it to a T all throughout the postseason, all throughout the finals. So you can't sit here and tell me that this isn't a dynasty, because it is. All right, let's get in the break here. When we come back, we got Stanley Cup Final to talk about. There's a lot of events that happened Wednesday night in Denver, including our good friend Sean McDonough sucking again. But there was a hockey game that got played too. He didn't do a good job of calling it. We'll be back.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
This is Davis Troxler, the proud owner of North Carolina Golf Academy and the director of instruction. Don't let your golf game suffer from this dreary winter season. Come hit some golf balls, take a lesson. You can call us at 336-324-2374 for details. Thank you, and keep it in the fairway.
Hey, are you sitting around wondering how much your house is worth in today's economy? Well, wonder no more. Just ask your agent. Jenny Fulton with Allen Tate Realtors can help. Contact Jenny today for a free analysis on your home. Call her at 336-978-0041 or email at jenny.fulton@allentate.com and get the easy process started today. Why wait? In the market to buy? Jenny can help you find a perfect home in the Triad also. Jenny Fulton, Allen Tate Realty. Call 336-978-0041. Start the process and ask your agent today. Walkertown Auto Sales. Look no further when shopping for your next vehicle. Located in the heart of the Triad at 3076 Walkertown View Drive in Walkertown, Walkertown Auto Sales specializes in affordable and reliable used cars, trucks, and SUVs. They offer financing with good credit, bad credit, or no credit, with interest rates as low as 3.9%. With knowledgeable employees that are always willing to go the extra mile, you'll drive away with the car of your dreams at Walkertown Auto Sales. Check out the entire online inventory now at WalkertownAutoSales.com. You are locked into Tobacco Road Sports Radio's TGIF lineup.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do. I ain't set this up. I ain't know nothing about this. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
You're welcome. TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. We love sports.
Joe Louis, the greatest boxer ever lived.
Not only do we love sports, but we love to debate sports.
He was bad in Captain Clay. He bad in Sugar Ray. He bad in that. Who that's you? The new boy has Mike Tyson. Look like a bulldog. He bad in him too. He done whipped Mike Tyson there. He whipped all their ass.
For the best sports analysis in the Triad.
What about Rocky Marciano?
In-depth local coverage of your favorite schools and teams.
Let me tell you something. One fall, Rocky Marciano was good. But compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
And of course, the best sports debate in the Triad.
Big Joe Louis' ass.
Welcome to Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
You're welcome.
I don't know how old he was, but got it.
Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
We're back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Joined as always our producer Desmond Johnson and co-host Christian Emery. Christian, Wednesday night, Ball Arena, Denver. Game one of the Stanley Cup Final, fairly eventful. Sean McDonough again dropped the ball multiple times in calling it. I'll give him credit. The overtime goal call was pretty good. It was decent. The other goal calls, especially the one that tied the game, weak. Just mid. Like the definition of mid.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad we've reached the point. I mean, I knew it was going to happen at some point, but and we'll get to this particular guy in a little bit, I'm sure, but I just miss Doc Emmerich calling these games. every year. He's on a different level than most announcers for any across the field of sports. That he's just. I just miss him calling it. His calls always, regardless of if it was a 5-1 game or in this case,
he found a way to make it sound exciting. And here's what Doc Emmerich actually this week, and I talked about it on my Twitter earlier in the week. The GOAT spoke about ESPN's first year back of coverage. Doc said they've got to do a better job to try and win hockey fans over if they want to be competitive. Doc said what I've said, which is, this wasn't in the quote that I posted, but Doc praised TNT for how they did things. Turner, like we said, one of the last couple of shows, Turner knocked it out of the park. I mean, they sucker punched ESPN in terms of the quality of the coverage. ESPN gets more Stanley Cup Finals. That's the only downside. Doc was also mad that nobody at ESPN reached out to Gary Thorne about coming back. And Christian, when you talk about somebody that found a way to make a game exciting, Gary Thorne was it. And look, Steve Levy was their number 2 play-by-play guy back then. He gets relegated to studio duty. John Buccigross and Steve Levy, the entire time ESPN has not had hockey, are pretty much the only 2 people other than Linda Cohn there that even cared.
Yeah.
So they should have gotten a much bigger role in terms of play-by-play. Buccigross, all he got to call was ESPN Plus exclusive games. Bob Wischusen, if anybody other than Sean McDonough was going to be number 1, should have been him. But, and I didn't know Bob Wischusen could call a hockey game like that. He was fantastic all year. Loved him. But that being said, Ray Ferraro has to pick up a lot of slack on Sean McDonough. The good thing is Ray Ferraro is wildly entertaining. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. It's not super important to the discussion, but go ahead.
If it was up to me, I think just because these are the 3 that I kind of grew up watching ESPN and having them explain hockey, or the 3 biggest supporters of hockey over ESPN since I've been watching SportsCenter and all them. I'd have Levy and Melrose do the play-by-play color, probably Levy play-by-play, Melrose on color, and then have Linda Cohn as a sideline reporter. That would probably be a much more entertaining group than Sean McDonough and all the other people who.
No, Ray Ferraro's fantastic.
Yeah.
Put Ray Ferraro with Bob Wischusen. That's a good pair.
I can see that.
Brian Boucher with Steve Levy. That's good. Melrose and Bucci, or vice versa. Flip the 2. Kevin Weeks broke the news that John Tortorella was hired as the Flyers head coach from behind some curtain somewhere in Ball Arena the other day.
I thought it was gorilla position for a wrestling match or something. But
he broke Bruce Cassidy to Vegas from the bottom of a treadmill. So
good hire by Vegas, by the way. But
very good hire, very smart hire. Barry Trotz, we'll see if he takes that free beer to go back home to Winnipeg. By the way, in case you missed it, the city of Winnipeg, well, it's not even a city, it's more of a township, because the arena is only 15,000 seats, and that's about the entire population. For a franchise known as the Jets, they don't even have an airport. Barry Trotz, who was relieved of his duties, stupidly, by the New York Islanders because none of their struggles this year were his fault.
No, he started the season on a 13-game road trip. That's
13-game road trip, and pretty much 4 of your top 6 forwards were hurt most of the year. So, no, none of that was his fault. But he's jobless at the moment. He's a Winnipeg native. There's a brewery in Winnipeg that has offered him free beer for life if he takes the job to resurrect the Winnipeg Jets, who, for lack of better phrasing, have been broken since they blew that lead in the third period against those guys in the first round of the 2019 playoffs.
Yeah. And I think
it's not the first franchise the Blues have broken. They broke Boston too. So
thank you for that, by the way.
You're welcome.
But if I'm Trotz, I'd heavily consider. I mean, I think he's from I don't know which direction, but he's from about 4 hours from Winnipeg. I mean, and I can't really think of another coach on the
4
market.
hours from Winnipeg is like rock throwing distance from here to somewhere. Like Winnipeg's just so small. It's close to everything. Again, they don't have an airport. It's like the Green Bay of the NHL, except there's much less mystique.
Yep, you're not wrong. But getting back to what I was saying, I think that Trotz is probably the biggest name left on the market
He's by far the biggest name left on the board.
Outside of maybe, and I would be very hesitant if I'm a team, just given the circumstances around this particular coach. But I don't know if Joe Quenneville would ever want to come back, given
I don't know if he can.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody's going to take him.
Exactly. So if he were to want to coach again and somebody was interested, I'd maybe reach out to him. But Trotz right now is probably the best coach available. Thankfully, he didn't go to Philadelphia. Tortorella going to Philadelphia is hilarious because he belongs to a city like Philadelphia. But
did you see Gritty?
No, I didn't.
He pulled out receipts from Tortorella bashing him on television.
Wow.
Gritty, don't forget, dude.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
Torts, you're going to have to go one-on-one with America's big, orange, furry, bug-eyed superstar.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, when I first saw Gritty, I thought he looked like the I forget, but it's like that orange hairy creature from Looney Tunes back in the 19
You know what I thought he looked like? If Yo Gabba Gabba was made by people who were on acid. I looked at Gritty the first time he was revealed on social media, and I said, that thing's going to walk up to children?
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to drop kick the children.
Yeah, I don't. What was their mascot before Gritty?
They didn't have one.
Okay, then that's
why they came up with Gritty. Again, don't have a mascot. The best we can come up with is a coked out version of a Yo Gabba Gabba character. Okay, cool. Anyways, back to the actual hockey.
Yeah.
There's a formula for Colorado to win this series and prevent a three-peat. They've got to find some kind of physical edge. Now, they found a way to outscore Tampa the other night, but Tampa battled back in that game multiple times because you know what they did? They had long shifts. Yeah. They wore Colorado down in their own zone. That's something Colorado's done a fantastic job of all playoffs. They've only lost twice, both to the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, and I think
because they swept the other two series. So this is a dominant team. Tampa Bay has not been a dominant team in this particular playoffs, but they have that pedigree and they know how to wear people down. The other thing is, for Colorado, he's skating, but he's not out there yet. Nazem Kadri, who was injured by Evander Kane in the Western Conference Final, he's the closest thing Colorado has to an enforcer right now, or a pest, somebody that can anger the other side. He's still not out there. So Tampa Bay almost feels like they've got free reign physically because they have Pat Maroon, whose literal job is not to score or even touch the puck. It's to hit people.
Yeah, and I think when you combine that with the fact that Tampa they've been in this situation before. Heck, they were in.
And the only reason they came back in that game, other than just, great cycle job, they showed the pedigree.
Yeah.
Colorado's biggest lesson before tomorrow night, keep your foot on the gas.
Yeah,
if there's any team you don't want to give the smallest sliver of momentum to, it's the one that's going for a three-peat.
Yeah.
Because they've been here before. They've done this.
Yeah.
They know the drill.
They've done it twice they've done it twice in this playoff already. They were down 1-0 to the Maple Leafs. And then they were down 2-0 to the Rangers, came back and won 4 in a row, or however many in a row, whatever. And
that's why I don't think this is Saturday night's necessarily a must win.
No,
because they have trailed in every series at one point to this point, whether it was 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. They found a way because they've been here, but they're not fazed by anything.
No, and they have plenty plenty of experience. You have Stamkos, you have Kucherov, you have Vasilevsky, who I guess I don't know what it is about game ones, but he.
Yeah, he's less than stellar for whatever reason. And look, I'm sorry, as good as Darcy Kemper has been all playoffs, the only way that Colorado wins this series is if they outscore Tampa. Because Darcy Kemper is not going to keep more than 3-4 goals out of the net.
No.
And this is where Colorado's got to find that they got to find a way to at least match the physicality. They're not going to out-hit Tampa.
No.
They're not going to out-cycle Tampa. They've got to find a way to do what Tampa has done so well the past 2 years, which is match their skill and their physicality, mesh the two together. The Hurricanes have done that really well to this point, too, the past couple of years. Match that and ride it.
Yeah, and pretty much.
The reason that Colorado has fallen short the last 2 or 3 years of getting to this point is because they hadn't done it. They had done it to this point. They out-hit St. Louis in 5 out of the 6 games in that series. Nobody out-hits a Craig Berube team unless they're absolutely trying to.
Yeah, and I think Tampa has, to me, to beat the, I mean, I said it last year, and I'll say it again, until Tampa does not repeat as a champion, you have to out-Tampa Tampa.
Exactly.
And that's not something that you can do because
that does not involve circumventing the salary cap.
Yeah. And who was their head coach before John Cooper? Do you remember?
See, that's the thing. I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I don't remember. That's irrelevant.
It doesn't matter to my point.
I think John Cooper's second year, they weren't even supposed to even come close to making it. They made it in 17 and lost to the Blackhawks. Was it 17 or 16?
I think it was 17. No. I think
it was either.
It may be 15.
It might have been 15. It was John Cooper's first or second year.
Yeah. And
then in 19, they have the greatest regular season of all time and get swept. Yeah. That was a very Virginia-like moment because they had to come back the next year and then, well, of course, they had to go in the bubble and all that, but it's, again, neither here nor there.
But anyway, for John Cooper, he's kind of instilled that playing style of, okay, we're going to be tough and we're going to be able to score. You're going to have to beat us physically to beat us. And to this point in the playoffs for a 7-game series, no one's been able to do that in 3 years.
No one's been able to play a complete 7-game series and beat Tampa at their own game.
Yeah.
But if there's any team that can do it, I feel like Colorado can because they have the size, they have the skill. The only thing is if they can get JT Compher and Nazem Kadri back out there. I believe Andrew Cogliano was skating today. I don't know if he's going to draw in, but that's another guy they can use as kind of a fourth line kind of grinder kind of guy. All lines have to step up. All defensemen have to step up. Darcy Kemper is going to have to make saves not even he thinks he can make.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're gonna win this.
Yeah, and you're going to have to Colorado, I mean, they're also going to have to learn to somehow, some way shut down one of Steven Stamkos or Nikita Kucherov.
On the flip side of that, if you're Tampa, you've got to find a way to slow down McKinnon, Rantanen, and Burakovsky. Burakovsky scored the overtime winner off a rebound.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the game, past the game, the first period was dominated by Colorado, which I think they were up 3-1 after that.
And I think they went into that locker room feeling themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And Tampa came back in that second period and punched them in the mouth. Twice.
Yeah, two goals in 48 seconds. And then the third period, I think both teams were kind of okay, let's not make that boneheaded mistake that gives the other team the lead. And then in overtime,
both teams played tentative in that third period, and then overtime, it's all hell.
It was just a bad turnover in overtime that led to the goal. But yeah, I think Colorado. I would feel confident that you can beat them now, but don't do like some teams I feel like in the past have, and you say, okay, we beat Tampa once, we're going to win the series. And Toronto,
I think that's what they went into their dressing room after the first period was Wednesday night. They said, "Oh, we're at 3-1. We got this. We're good."
Yeah, no,
we back off a little bit. No, you don't back off against these guys. Period.
two-time defending, going for a three-peat, you can't do that at all.
You know how hard this is to do in the NHL compared to every other sport?
And I think
it hasn't been done since the 1980s.
Yeah. Was the Islanders that won 4 straight, or did they go to 4 straight finals?
They won 4 straight.
Okay, yeah.
The only teams that have come close are Chicago and Pittsburgh recently. And they either got to the third one and lost or didn't get to the third one at all. The Washington Capitals had something to say about the third one. All right, we got to get in the break here. Again, Game 2, Stanley Cup Final tomorrow night, ABC, 8 o'clock. So there's no NBA Finals anymore. So turn all your attention on ABC to Sean McDonough not calling a hockey. Yeah, knowing nothing about hockey, and Ray Ferraro saving his backside time and time again. So if you want to hear an unexciting hockey call, tune in. If not, find the Canadian Sportsnet broadcast. I don't know. All right, we got to get in the break. When we come back, College World Series is underway. Oklahoma and Texas A&M are in action right now. Oklahoma is throttling their future, actually past, now future conference mate in Texas A&M. We got more to talk about. Notre Dame representing the ACC. We'll break all that down after this.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Welcome to The Pit Stop, the only radio show produced in the Triad dedicated to Bowman Gray coverage every single week. Join host Brett Wiseman for exclusive coverage and interviews with your favorite drivers at the Madhouse, plus recaps of the previous week's races, coverage of all divisions, modified, sportsman, street stock, and stadium stock. Tune in every Monday night at 8 p.m. on WTOB 980 AM and 96.7 FM, or throughout the week during the season on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Looking to tailgate this summer? Stop by One Stop on the way. One Stop number 6, located just 1 mile west of East Forsyth at 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville. One Stop serves fresh fried chicken and our famous taters 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Feeding a crowd? Get 16 pieces of chicken and sides for just $27.99. Craving wings? Come try our new spicy breaded wings. Get a 5-wing meal with 6 taters and a roll for just $7.39. Now in regular hot ranch or spicy. One Stop number 6, 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville.
Here at Tobacco Road Sports Radio, we ask the tough questions.
Hey, you got any left-handed footballs?
We're never afraid to tell you how we feel.
Oh, we look like the damn bad news bears.
We'll debate sports. We'll debate anything.
Man, you lying. You ain't never met Martin Luther King. Not the winner. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. No, he did not.
No matter what, Tobacco Road Sports Radio has you covered.
I'm going to come right back at him. Soldier.
You're listening to Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Beamer Tire and Auto Repair, now with 3 locations across the Triad in High Point, Greensboro, and our new location in Kernersville. Beamer Tire and Auto offers full-service auto repair, all tire brands, free alignment checks, oil changes, and more. In Kernersville, check out the no appointment needed Quick Lube shop. Check out their thousands of 5-star ratings via Google and Yelp. They care because they know that you can go anywhere. So try a shop with a beating heart, not a bottom line. Beamer Tire and Auto Repair. Visit us on Facebook or at beamertire.com.
Franchise players.
Welcome back. Sports Channel 8's Ben Swain. How you doing, man?
I love that you guys are doing what you're doing. I love that we're doing what we're doing, because the local sports fan is really underserved in sports radio here in North Carolina. Being able to, Monday morning after the New Carolina game, being able to listen to local guys talk about the local game.
Franchise players. Every Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com and at 6 p.m. on WCOG 1320 AM and WTOB 988.
This is Coach Rez, head coach of your Carolina Cobras arena football team. You're listening to TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, your home for Triad Sports.
And you know this, man.
Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
We're back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Brett Wiseman alongside Christian Emery, our producer Desmond Johnson. Got College World Series action underway. Texas A&M and Oklahoma Oklahoma has opened up the can on the 5th overall seed in the tournament, I might add. It's 12-3 now. Boomer Sooner, top of the 4th, 1 out. Sooners just had a bases clearing. I'm guessing it was a single. I don't know how it would be, but that's what the ESPN app has it listed as. Notre Dame, the ACC representative in Omaha this year of the Omaha 8. They'll play Texas tonight. Again, this is double elimination, reminder. Tomorrow, 2 games. Stanford and Arkansas, open bracket 2. And Auburn and Ole Miss, they'll round things out in tomorrow's action. And losers go to the losers bracket. Winners, of course, move on to the winners bracket. Winner plays the winner, loser plays the loser, and then it's just a round robin thing. And it can get complicated and convoluted at times, but once you get to the final, it's a best 2 out of 3, period. That's boom. Once we get there, we're good. There's a lot to unpack on a lot of these teams. Oklahoma went into Blacksburg and beat one of the best teams in the country in Virginia Tech to get here. Notre Dame, I believe, the past 2 seasons has broken the NCAA tournament record for home runs by a single team the past 2 tournaments. The Golden Domers, they slug a ton, and that's what's gotten them to this point. We'll find out how good that is against a Texas team that is about as pitching laden as it gets. Stanford is too. Stanford comes out of a conference in the Pac-12 where pitching is paramount, to say the least, because weather-wise, and I would know this because I did a lot with Washington State baseball this year, weather-wise, there's not a whole lot of room for offense. You know, a lot of the Washington State games I was in the studio for here in Winston-Salem, out on the Palouse in Pullman, game time temperature at 6 o'clock in late April when it's 75 here, 38 degrees and spitting mist, you know. And it's like that pretty much everywhere in the Pac-12 except for UCLA and USC. Arizona, also an exception. They're here too. Washington State, you know, Oregon State, Oregon. Like the Pac-12 is a tremendous baseball conference, but the clubs are built differently than any other clubs in the nation because they're stacked with pitching, and because the only way you win a lot of those big conference games is 1-0, 2-0, 3-2, 2-1. You scratch out a couple, and your starter goes out there and throws 7 innings, and you move on. That's the other thing is you'll see programs have, you know, a Friday night starter. They have an ace. They have, you know, what an MLB team would be their 5th starter at a rotation would go in the midweek game. Just trickle on down the line. Any number of the pitchers from Arkansas, Texas, or Stanford, especially Stanford, could start on a Friday night for 75% of the other teams in the country. Could be a Friday night or a Saturday night starter for any of those teams. But Stanford, again, the only question for them is, are they going to have the offense? They proved it the back half of their super regional in Palo Alto from Sunken Diamond against UConn, who beat Wake Forest and Maryland to get out of the College Park regional. Texas, if you don't know, and Tennessee didn't get here, by the way. Notre Dame took care of that. So we get no volunteer firemen, which, before I get to the next point, for the folks that don't watch college baseball from when it starts in February to now, they just see, oh, wow, number 1 seed went down. Wow, Tennessee must be bad. Tennessee, it's not, no. This is baseball. One team gets hot on a given day, boom. Same thing as if a team gets hot at the right time in, say, the New York Giants. Both years they won the Super Bowl. Mid-regular season, they get in the playoffs, they go into Lambeau, They beat two of the best Packers teams in the past 25 years, and they win the Super Bowl twice. In Major League Baseball, nobody expected Kansas City to go from a wild card game to the World Series in 2014. They did that. So, I mean, NHL, too. St. Louis, last place, halfway through the season, go on a run, win the Cup. March Madness. Teams hot shooting, UMBC.
UNC last year.
Yeah. They can beat a team that's quote-unquote better. That's what happened here. On those two particular days, or two of those three particular days, Tennessee did not hit, Notre Dame did, and Notre Dame pitched, Tennessee did not. So there you go.
Yeah, from what I've we do a show, we run a show from Learfield. It's primetime in the ACC. From what I've seen, Notre Dame they should have been. There's a lot of people were kind of questioning why they were not at top.
Notre Dame honestly could have hosted a regional and probably should have.
Yeah,
but there were a couple of bad non-conference losses earlier on in the season that derailed them that opportunity. But they more than proved they deserved that opportunity at some point.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is they were kind of surprised that Notre Dame didn't get to host, or they weren't ranked among the higher single-digit seeds to host. And from what I've seen,
only top 16 get to host that. So
yeah, they could very well. I'm not surprised that they're here, but they definitely I don't know if I expected them to beat Tennessee, but I figured, okay, if they have to play a team like Tennessee, they're certainly more than capable of beating them. But
I think from Tennessee's perspective, Notre Dame was the last team they wanted to see come into that super regional in Knoxville. Speaking of Texas, Ivan Melendez, who's also known as the Hispanic Titanic for his tape measure home runs, one of which in the Super Regional against East Carolina, which Texas won at like 1:30 in the morning a week and a half ago because it was rained out from like 4 o'clock on. Melendez hit a ball in Greenville, North Carolina that I don't think any baseball has ever landed at unless it was... No, sorry. There's just no way a baseball has ever landed that far. He hit it over the jungle onto the street. So like 470 probably. Normal human beings don't do that. But he's been named the Dick Hauser Trophy winner. That's the college baseball Heisman, most outstanding player. And in a season in college baseball that's only 60 games as opposed to 160 games, 32 home runs and 94 RBIs. Those are numbers that some guys don't get in a full 162-game Major League Baseball season, okay? So he's a stud. Big reason why Texas is where they are right now, and we'll see them against the aforementioned Notre Dame later tonight. Ole Miss, as much of a powerhouse as they are, was not a lock to get into this tournament. They had a middle-of-the-road regular season. They were preseason number 2, came out of the gates and got swept in a non-conference series by Long Beach State at home the first weekend of the season. Actually, I believe they were preseason number 1 and got swept by Long Beach first weekend of the season. So, that bunch down in Oxford has had a lot to deal with for what's really a blue blood of college baseball. They and Mississippi State both. I like to call Mississippi Indiana's the state of basketball. Texas would probably be the state of football. Mississippi is the state of college baseball. Ole Miss and Southern Miss went at it in the Super Regional in Hattiesburg. Ole Miss was very much on the bubble. Again, this is preseason number 1 team in the country. That was in danger of missing the tournament. Very much on the bubble, and they lost on the second day of the SEC tournament. So they went home from Hoover, Alabama, not knowing what their fate was going to be. But because NC State was given the boot, because of their result against Wake Forest, which the committee said even if NC State had won one of those 3 games against Wake Forest, they would have gotten in. Instead, they got swept the last week of the regular season by Wake Forest. Wake Forest got in over NC State, and then there was a vacant spot in the last 4 in, kind of. Ole Miss got in, and the committee made the right choice. Tim Elko, if you haven't seen, that speaking of mashing baseballs, that's what all that guy does. Like, he goes to sleep hitting 112-mile-an-hour line drives at people. He also had 2 torn ACLs last year that he played through in both knees. So he's also not human. I'm convinced he's an alien of some kind. Hit baseballs into orbit through that whole Super Regional. We'll see him tomorrow. And we'll see an unfamiliar face in baseball. That'd be Auburn. First time they've been here in quite a while. They hosted a Super Regional. They came out of it with a walk-off win to win their Super Regional. So we've got Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Auburn, and Arkansas. Half of the Omaha 8 are from the SEC. The SEC is the college baseball conference. It just means more. I hate that. If you know me, you know how I feel about the pretentiousness of the SEC, but it cannot be ignored that in a year that many within the sport thought that the SEC was having probably its most down year in terms of the quality of the teams that were coming out of it, they get half the Omaha 8. Granted, one of them's getting shellacked right now, but Texas A&M is not the worst of that bunch. Auburn's the less than stellar of that bunch, but Arkansas didn't have their real desired level of regular season either, even though they were in the top 5, top 10 all year. And look, if Tennessee would have gotten here, we would have had 5 out of 8 out of the SEC. So, and this is not a year when a usual suspect like Vanderbilt is out here in Omaha. I mean, Auburn's not a usual suspect. So, Oklahoma's not a usual suspect. Texas is. The other schools are. Auburn and Ole Miss and Arkansas are. But there's just a back half of Stanford is, I guess, to an extent. But Notre Dame's not a mainstay. That program's been on the come up the past couple of years, and now they've gotten here. That's the goal, is to get to Omaha, and they've been close the last couple of years, and now they get here. One thing to watch out for, and I think the Omahogs, Arkansas, who beat North Carolina in the Chapel Hill Super Regional, I think they've got to be the favorites because, to me, the only difference I see starkly is Arkansas has the pitching and they have the offense, and the two things have come together, and that's how they've rocketed from kind of a middle-of-the-road, murky water portion of the regular season, the back half, and then shot through the SEC tournament to get here. I think they're the favorite because of all the pieces they have, but don't count anybody out. This is not like a Final Four. This is not like a college football playoff. This is the College World Series, especially in terms of format, and being that it's double elimination, A, B, the final is best 2 out of 3, is the most unpredictable, quote-unquote, championship that the NCAA puts on, period. The most unpredictable one at all. The only one that rivals it's the Frozen Four in hockey.
Yeah, I agree with that. 2 out of 3 kind of makes it makes it a lot more unpredictable. Plus you have the winner and the loser bracket. So one team that goes to a loser bracket could very well play
one
the team
that
eliminated
could
them.
get shellacked the first game could go on a run and win the whole thing.
Yeah.
And after game 1, you're thinking, oh, they're done. They lost 14-0. They might not lose again.
Yeah. And one thing that I always kind of hope for when this happens is, okay, who beat this team to send them to the loser bracket? I kind of always hope that the team that sends a team to the loser bracket play each other in the College World Series just to kind of settle it and see ultimately who is the best team. But
that's the best thing, is there's that possibility of things coming back full circle at the end of this next week and a half out at Charles Schwab Ballpark in the great city of Omaha, Nebraska, home of the College World Series. When we come back, we'll kick off hour 2. Today is a day that 28 years ago, a man named Al Callings and another man named O.J. Simpson got into a white Ford Bronco and pretty much captured the entire collective attention of the millions of citizens of Los Angeles. And God knows who else. 95 million people tuned into the live coverage. But the day wasn't significant because of that. There's a 30 for 30 on this. That's what we're going to build off of. There were many, many more significant events in sports that day, not just specifically the O.J. Simpson, former football star, being chased on 2 counts of first-degree murder thing, but there were a lot of significant events in sports that intertwined into that that we're going to break down when we come back. I don't think it's something that a lot of people realize, especially if you haven't seen the 30 for 30, but we're going to talk about it.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Carolina Cobras.
If I take that field, if my game starts to slide, I have no fear. If my brother got my gun,
Catch them all season long.
That's all we got. That's all we got.
On your home for Triad Sports.
Oh, are we right here? Are we right here? Oh, we right here.
TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Blue Naples Pizzeria in Kernersville is now hiring. Come work for one of the best Italian restaurants in the Triad. Currently hiring dishwashers, cooks, front cashiers, and more. Great hours, great pay. Give them a call at 336-993-7707 or stop by and inquire at 1519 Union Cross Road in Kernersville. Start working this week. Blue Naples Pizza.
This is Davis Troxler, the proud owner of North Carolina Golf Academy and the Director of Instruction. Don't let your golf game suffer from this dreary winter season. Come hit some golf balls, take a lesson. You can call us at 336-324-2374 for details. Thank you, and keep it in the fairway.
ChemSource Direct is a single source supplier. In business since 2007, they have over 80,000 products for customers just like you. Located in the heart of North Carolina, they supply cleaning products all throughout the Southeast. Whether you're a commercial business, office, or municipal building, looking for wholesale cleaning products, chemicals, cleaning equipment, or service, they've got you covered. Please reach out and start saving money today. Stop by their store open to the public and save. ChemSource Direct, 1207 South Park Drive in Kernersville. Give them a call at 336-515-9990. Order from the website at chemsourcedirect.com. Welcome to The Pit Stop, the only radio show produced in the Triad dedicated to Bowman Gray coverage every single week. Join host Brett Wiseman for exclusive coverage and interviews with your favorite drivers at the Madhouse, plus recaps of the previous week's races, coverage of all divisions, modified, sportsman, street stock, and stadium stock. Tune in every Monday night at 8 p.m. on WTOB 980 AM and 96.7 FM, or throughout the week during the season on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Hey, are you sitting around wondering how much your house is worth in today's economy? Well, wonder no more. Just ask your agent. Jenny Fulton with Allen Tate Realtors can help. Contact Jenny today for a free analysis on your home. Call her at 336-978-0041 or email at jenny.fulton@allentate.com and get the easy process started today. Why wait? In the market to buy? Jenny can help you find a perfect home in the Triad also. Jenny Fulton, Allen Tate Realty. Call 336-978-0041. Start the process and ask your agent today. Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Brett Wiseman alongside producer Desmond Johnson, co-host Christian Emery. That Update from the College World Series we told you about. It's actually a grand slam from Jackson Nicholas with the bases loaded. It was 8-3 at that point. It's now 12-3 Oklahoma over the 5th overall seed Texas A&M. Again, Notre Dame and Texas coming up tonight, and then the other 2 matchups to come tomorrow. This date is significant, not just because of the Bronco chase, but there were a lot of other things, as we talked about before the break, as touched on in the incredibly well done 30. It's my favorite 30 for 30 of all time. And I watch it every year for this reason. There's no talking heads. There's no interviews. There's no narration. It's 100% raw news footage of everything that happened that day and, the few days leading up to it. So we'll get to how the OJ Bronco thing ties into all of this. But there were significant things in sports that happened other than that all along this day. And Dez lived it, so he'll talk about it too here in a second. The New York Rangers, something that at that point in time, the entire Rangers fan base didn't think they'd live to see them win a Stanley Cup, a lot like we Blues fans went through. 54-year curse ended. They beat the Vancouver Canucks in 7 games. June 7th, they beat them on the 14th. 17th was the Stanley Cup parade through the streets of Manhattan. That night in Manhattan, the Knicks were hosting the Rockets in a pivotal Game 5 of that NBA Finals. The Knicks would win that game, but it's what happened during the broadcast that we'll get to in a second that's of importance. The United States was hosting the World Cup, which had not happened before and has not happened since, until it will in 2026 when all of North America hosts it, and the vast majority of the host cities will be in the United States. In case you missed that list that came out yesterday, Kansas City, Foxborough, Philadelphia, there's Vancouver, Seattle. There's a lot of Vancouver's in Canada, but Seattle. There's 16 host cities were announced yesterday, and the majority of them are in the United States. But it is the first time a World Cup will have 3 host nations total. But this was significant because in 1994, in terms of the world stage of soccer, the United States had still not jammed its foot into that door. The interest still was not quite there. If anything, the World Cup in 94 kickstarted the MLS. Kickstarted the movement for MLS. Might not have kickstarted that league, but it kickstarted the idea of one. Soldier Field in Chicago hosted the opening ceremony. Germany and Bolivia, I believe, played the opener. Korea played the nightcap. It was 2 matches. Brazil went on to win that World Cup, but that was a significant event for the country overall to host a World Cup at Soldier Field. Oprah was there. She opened things up. The Chicago native, President Bill Clinton, was there. He spoke, basically welcoming the soccer world to the United States, saying that soccer was a unifying game, and so on and so forth. But significant. Speaking of the U.S., Arnold Palmer at the U.S. Open was playing in his final round of his final U.S. Open. He finished the day before at 6 over, I believe. So he was in very real danger of missing the cut. There was pretty much no chance he was going to make the cut. So everyone went into day 2 of that U.S. Open knowing that was going to be Arnold Palmer's final round of competitive touring major tournament golf. He played on the senior tour until 2006, but that was the last time he played a major or even minor, tournament round of tournament golf. When he walked to the 18th that day, Brent Musburger said on the call, it's like watching Babe Ruth go to his last at-bat. It's like watching, we thought we were going to watch it, we didn't, Tom Brady taking one final knee. It's like the greatest of eras taking that final bow. It's like the last time Michael Jordan walked off the court. It was in a Wizards uniform, but still, last time an Ozzie Smith would walk to the plate or something like that. It was that kind of significance. Arnold Palmer didn't usually break down about a lot of stuff, but he couldn't get through the interview right after with ESPN, and he couldn't get through the post-round press conference either. Meanwhile, in Kansas City, Ken Griffey Jr. hit his 30th home run into the fountain at Kauffman Stadium against the Royals. Well on pace to break the then yet to be broken Roger Maris 61 home run single season record. He was halfway there by June, which McGuire and Sosa were, but no one else had been that close or that well on pace to that point. So the thinking was, yeah, he can do it, especially because he plays his home games indoors. MLBPA went on strike almost exactly 2 months later. So there was no way we would have known. Also, the Montreal Expos were 30 games over 500 on June 17th, 1994. The now Washington Nationals, the only chance that team ever had at any semblance shred of success, and the canceling of that season, if anything, broke the franchise and killed baseball in Montreal, because for the next 10 years they mired in mediocrity, and in 2004 moved to Washington, D.C. and became the Nationals. Anyways, so all that is happening. All the while, as the day moves on, we're watching Arnold Palmer go through his final round of his final U.S. Open. We're watching Rangers fans celebrate in the streets. They're preparing for the next game that night at the same time. Mayor Rudy Giuliani saying at the Stanley Cup parade, hey, you guys want to come back next week? Yeah, go root for the Knicks then. We like this party, don't we? Yeah. Again, that was in the middle 2 years where the Bulls were not the Bulls because Michael Jordan was not there. That was actually a really good Knicks-Rockets series. Really two evenly matched team. Well, not evenly matched, but like 11:30, 12 o'clock that day, you've got Arnold Palmer, you've got the parade happening, and then the news breaks that OJ's been charged. We knew, I say we like I was alive. Des, folks knew.
When were you born?
97.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I've done a lot because this is a fascinating series of events.
All right. So I was in 94. I was a sophomore in high school. And that was back when me and my buddies watched every NBA game. It felt like, and this NBA Finals is the first finals in 3 years that didn't have Jordan and the Bulls in it. Knicks and Rockets. So
there were a lot more eyeballs on people that might have been turned off by the Bulls, the same team wins everything kind of crowd.
No, that sentiment wasn't there. It wasn't like LeBron fatigue. People enjoyed watching the Jordan Bulls in the finals every June. Like Jordan was just at a different level in terms of recognition and notoriety and his place in the game. They were already calling him the greatest of all time when he retired in 93, before the second three-peat. Like they were already calling him this. So it was a little bit different. Actually, it was more curiosity of if the Knicks could pull it off, because the Knicks have been knocking on the door in the East for like the past 3 years and couldn't get past the Bulls. And this was the first year they got
that's
past
the other point I wanted to make very quickly is the Rangers broke that curse. And people are dancing, singing in the streets. The entire city of New York is thinking, well, damn, if the Rangers can do it, then for sure the Knicks can do it, right?
Right. And I mean, this was a pretty evenly matched finals between the Knicks and the Rockets. First time we saw Hakeem in the finals. First time we saw Ewing in the finals. We were going to get a classic center versus center. These two dudes were like top
prime Anthony Mason, future Charlotte Hornet.
Yeah. Kenny Smith was on that Hornets team, Mario Elie. I mean, both teams were let. Robert Horry was on that Rockets team.
Infantile Robert Horry.
I remember that day, not fondly. I remember it vividly because I remember being so angry that day because we were all set for this game. And what happened
you were angry that this was happening and it was ruining the game.
Sort of. We were upset that we couldn't watch the game. Like when it broke and they figured out where. Well, first what happened? It didn't just immediately switch over to the Chase. Right. Nobody knew where OJ was. So like Bob Costas, this is when NBA was still on NBC with the the like the whole
greatest theme song of all time. Yeah, let me, if I may, let me break down where we're at in the day. So OJ was supposed to surrender at like 11:30 local time that morning.
He didn't. He was never going to.
He was never going to. No one knew where he was. The quote-unquote suicide note gets read by Robert Kardashian at that press conference.
Right.
Maybe 30, 45 minutes later, Al Cowling just spotted in the Bronco with OJ, and then one news helicopter finds it, and then California Highway Patrol finds it. They're talking to the Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, somebody on a brick phone from inside the car. And Bob Costas is getting ready to go on to broadcast the NBA Finals and do a pregame little headshot thing. And here's the thing. During the game, when they found out where he was, they kept going back and forth. There was a point in that Knicks-Rockets game late in the second quarter, Anthony Mason took an elbow, and there was a little fracas that broke out. Nobody saw said fracas because all eyes were on OJ on the 5 freeway.
Right. What was happening was that at first they would cut in, like you said, they were going back and forth. They would cut in with updates. And then eventually it got to a point where NBC decided that more people were going to watch OJ going down this freeway than, what was it, game 4 of the NBA Finals?
Game 5. The series was tied at 2.
Right. So it was a really important game in the series.
It was a pivotal game.
Me and my buddies, we're basketball junkies at this point. So I'm a sophomore in high school. So we're looking forward to this game 5. It's, they had to shift it out west, the whole thing. So what happened after about 3 or 4 times of them going back and forth, NBC decided just to completely, when they found him on the freeway is when they shifted over. And when they shifted over, they stayed with him for, it felt like 20 minutes. So we couldn't see what was going on. And
I think
then
that's
NBC
the only
put a
time Tom
window in the
Brokaw has
bottom of the
ever.
screen.
That's the only time Tom Brokaw has ever read a sports score live on the air and had to give Learfield-style scoreboard updates.
Yeah,
but
they put a little window, like the little window I'm in right now. They put that in the bottom of the screen and had OJ's screen like yours is, like where it was huge. And we're like, it should be the other way around. This is the NBA Finals. Like, yeah, we get it. It's OJ Simpson. See, with us being, I'm 14, 15 years old, so my mind wasn't completely wrapped around who OJ Simpson was. But in today's world, it'd be the equivalent of Kevin Durant being accused of murder and going on the run, and the news and people with social media cameras or whatever are following him down Interstate 40. Like that's literally, or actually, I would say bigger than Kevin Durant, because OJ was like, to like my parents' generation, he was like their Walter Payton, their one of their bigger football stars. So to hear that he had been accused of this crime, it was
to a lot of people
being accused of something,
To a lot of people, he was really the first, other than maybe, I don't know, Gale Sayers, the first African American superstar football player.
I wouldn't even say Gale was, because Gale only played like 5 years. It was OJ. OJ was the first, and it's okay. So he was the first crossover star where he was starting.
He was also the first guy that assimilated himself into pop culture. Second of all,
right. Well, you start getting Hertz commercials and things like that. He became the go-to guy, African American athlete in the 70s for big corporations to put on their spots so they could reach different audiences. So it became OJ, and then. After his career was over, of course, he was well known to be one of the sportscasters for NBC's NFL broadcast, the Naked Gun series. He was out there, so people knew who he was. And it wasn't like I'm trying to think of something comparable to, almost like the way Kobe Bryant kind of slipped into retirement and kept busy doing other things.
Right.
Sort of the same type of thing. So that was the shock value, because people at that age, when I was in 94, if you were 30 or older, you knew exactly who OJ Simpson was. So going back to me saying, we got mad, we couldn't watch the game we wanted to in the way we wanted to, because this was taken over, because they didn't cut once he got home. When he got home, they literally just pointed a camera.
They stayed with it.
into a dark park driveway because they turn off all the lights so nobody could see the SUV, and they just sat there for like the whole night until OJ finally got out of the car later on that evening once it was pitch black dark. The game is already over. It took over the entire NBA Finals even after Game 5. It was like all everybody was talking about, and then of course that led to the so-called trial of the century, which it in fact was. I can't think of anything in a courtroom bigger than that OJ trial. Like this whole Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing that just happened.
Not even close.
Nowhere
Not
near
even close.
of what happened with the OJ thing. But
look, I know there were actual criminal proceedings where it wasn't on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. If there's ever such a thing as a made-for-TV show trial, that was it.
Another thing too, that day, people don't realize that day ushered in 24-hour news coverage. We didn't have that before.
See, that's why NBC kept breaking in, because there was no MSNBC for them to go to.
Right.
There was
no, but it wasn't like designed to cover a story just minute by minute as it goes. Yeah. Fox News grew because of Fox News was brand new when this happened, and it created the 24-hour news cycle where we didn't have it before this day, and after this day, you literally could put a line in terms of history of media before June 17th and after June 17th.
Significant day in sports and significant day in sports media. If anything, you could make the case as to why so many major sporting events like the Stanley Cup Final ended up on NBCSN half the time. So if, major events like that did happen, they didn't have to break in. But, that's neither here nor there. From the media perspective, there were portions of that day, and if you watch the 30 for 30, you'll see this. KCBS, or one of the stations in LA that was not an ABC affiliate, had a Barbara Walters lower thirds graphic on their air. And you hear their anchor say, Barbara Walters is not reporting because she doesn't work for us. We're a CBS affiliate. And then another local news station has their lower third pop up. So many people, so many networks, stations were covering the same thing with the same exact camera shot from helicopters that were 2 inches from each other, that satellites were cross-waving. So you were basically changing channels without pressing a remote.
It was frustrating. Just looking back on it, that entire day was just frustrating, like the whole thing. And then you start finding out stuff, because at that point we knew about the murders,
right?
But we were still learning info. It wasn't like it is today, where you kind of get everything like quick and hot, like on Twitter or whatever. It was still trickling out, like what was going on. That's
the funny thing. A lot of that conversation that was in the documentary with OJ and I don't know if it was a sheriff or somebody with highway patrol, whoever the gentleman was he was speaking to from the brick phone inside the car. That cop repeatedly said, "Don't do it. We love you. So many people love you. It's going to work itself out. You're going to be fine." They had a psychologist on NBC with Tom Brokaw that said an innocent man doesn't do this, but, he was proven innocent. We're not going to get into that part of it, but at the time, no one was, as the trial went on, everyone kind of became convinced that he was, right?
No, it wasn't even, so that actually was a very interesting time in America, because I had by the time the trial was going on, I'm a junior.
Right.
And you know what? Maybe I was a junior in 94. Yeah, because it would have been the summer of 94. So going into 94,
going into your junior year. Yeah.
Right. So it was the summer before my junior year, because by the time the trial happened, I was a senior and I was in journalism. So I was writing for the school paper. And I remember the day the verdict came out, because we had TVs in all of our classrooms, just like they used to do ACC tournament or whatever. Everybody had a TV in their room, and we're sitting there watching it. And I remember the reactions in the class when they said not guilty. There was probably me and maybe 4 or 5 other black people in the class. The other 16 or so were white. And when they read the verdict,
all the black people cheered, and all the white people were just like dumbfounded, like shocked that this dude could get away with this. And looking back on it now as an adult, I know that we cheered not because we wanted OJ to get away with murder. It was in a weird, selfish way. We cheered because a African-American male finally got a not guilty verdict in a court of law. And even though
in Los Angeles,
the riots had just happened. The Rodney King stuff had just happened like 3 years prior. So the city's still hot. So nobody's trusting the police. People thought OJ was going to get shot in his driveway. Like literally, that's why they kept the cameras on him on June 17th, because they thought the police were going to shoot him. Yeah, they thought they were going to shoot him in his driveway, and they wanted documented tape what was going on. So in the end, looking back on it, of course, it wasn't right to cheer for him to get away with this, and karma bit him in the end anyway.
It caught up to him, yeah.
But at that time, I just remember there was a lot of racial divide going on in the country, just like it is today. Like people like to pretend like it's gone away because we elected a black president and all this other stuff. It hasn't gone away. It's ingrained in the fabric of this country. It's never going to probably go away, not in our lifetime. So, I mean, this was just one of those things and one of those days that amplified where the country was at that point. But 1994, great year for hip hop music. Check that out if you can. 94 through 96.
By the way, moving the conversation on a little bit, as we said, Brazil went on to win that World Cup. The Knicks won that game that night, but Des, as you said, nobody saw it.
It was in a little corner of the screen, so like it kind of got lost in the day. Like we got to see the game. It just wasn't the way you expect to watch an NBA Finals game because you couldn't hear it.
And picture on a maximum 26-inch screen in 1994, which is about all everybody had. It's a lot different than the 46-inch I'm looking at right now.
And there was no audio. Like we couldn't hear the audio. Like we couldn't hear the call from the game because on the big screen was Tom Brokaw or Dan Rather, whoever it was on what channel you were watching with the story. So to appease the NBA fans, they put it down in the corner. But to be honest, I mean, the way it was going, I kind of understand why they did it that way now that I'm older. But back then, we were so.
It was the only way they could do it, and that was unprecedented for any network to break into a live sporting event for anything that wasn't, like a catastrophic mass casualty event or something. Some kind of
anything where they had done it before, except for the Oakland World Series when the earthquake. And that was the only
that just happened to occur where the broadcast was taking place.
Yeah,
I don't think ever
around the same time, wasn't it? When was that? That was
88 or 89. Yeah,
it was Dodgers and the Dodgers.
That was the Bay Area series.
Yeah, it was Dodgers,
it was Giants. Yeah. It was Giants A's.
Giants A's. That's what it was. And I was actually watching that.
The earthquake occurred during ABC's pregame.
Yeah. So because they didn't know what was happening at first, and then it
knocked them off the air.
Yeah, so
it knocked their transmitter off.
That's the only thing I could think of during a sporting event where something happened outside of sports that affected the event during that time period. But just a weird.
I can't think of any sporting event that was on network television that anything happened significant enough to break into, especially Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
Yeah, something that's crazy too, since we're still in that time period. I just finished watching The Last Dance again over this past week while my family was out of town, and I thought about this. In '94, there was a baseball strike, correct?
Yeah, like we talked about with Ken Griffey, he was on pace to break that record, and pretty much 2 months to the day after this, they went on strike.
If by all accounts, in the White Sox farm system, Terry Francona, all these other guys, he was the Birmingham Barons manager at the time with Jordan on the squad. They all said with 1,500 at-bats, he was going to find a way to make it to the major leagues, right?
Yep.
Jordan was asked to go play with the Scabs that were playing during the strike, and he refused. He refused to go play with them because he was on the side of the players. And because the strike happened, he started showing back up at Chicago Bulls practices, got the itch back, came back. If the strike never happened in 1994,
there might not be another three-peat.
Even more than that.
if that hadn't happened, I think Shaquille O'Neal would never have become a Laker because the Orlando Magic would have won the NBA title in 1990.
That's right.
They wouldn't have. They beat the Bulls. They went on and lost to the Rockets, who repeated. But if Jordan never comes back, or comes back a year later, or whatever, in '95 you probably get Houston versus the Magic, and Houston wins like they did. The next year in '96, that Magic team won 60 plus games. We just don't talk about it because the Bulls won 72.
Right.
That Magic team probably beats that whoever. Well, it would have been the Sonics. They would have beat the Sonics in the '96 final. So, like, so many different things would have happened differently because of that year. It's funny that you're bringing it up, June 17th, 1994, because I was just thinking, well, in that year, if this hadn't happened, this happens, that happens, this happens, that, like, all these different things cascade out, and you probably don't get a second three-peat from the Bulls, and you probably don't get Shaq as a Laker. You don't get Shaq and Kobe. And all this stuff just from one thing happening in 1994 that wasn't even their sport. It was Major League Baseball. So,
yeah,
there you go.
And I just wanted to add one thing that I always forget about this, but wasn't that the year? I mean, the year the Rangers won the Cup. Wasn't that the year that Messier guaranteed they'd win it in 6, but they lost in 7? But they won it in 7.
That was the Eastern Conference Final.
Okay,
he guaranteed that they were down 3-2 in that series against the Devils.
Okay,
he guaranteed they would win Game 6, take it home, and win it in 7.
Okay.
The Canucks fans were so mad at the result of that series that they ended up rioting for 3 nights straight in the streets of Vancouver. But we've said it this whole segment. There were so many events in the world of sports specifically that have transcended time, all because they were under this vast umbrella of the OJ thing. And because it happened where it happened, you had people that, watched him at USC or watched him play when he was with the 49ers for the 5 minutes he played with the 49ers. And he did play for the 49ers, by the way, in case nobody knew that. He wasn't just Buffalo. People were parking their cars on bridges, hanging over bridges. There was a throng of people outside his house, outside of the giant media frenzy that was there. Just this massive cascading of what is happening. And I can only imagine what my parents were doing, Christian, what your parents were doing. It boggles me to have lived through that, A, as a sports fan, B, just as a general person. 95 million people tuned in to some portion of that series of events on network television. That began cable news as we know it, Des, as you said, because 95 million people tuned in to figure out what the God's green earth is going on here. And then you have everything else that we've talked about. This date is a monumental day in American history and in sports history. Also on this day, Watergate happened, but
I'm gonna go watch this 30 for 30 again. You were actually, I meant to say, you were wild at the beginning of this segment, saying this is the best 30 for 30 ever made. Is that what you said, or just your favorite? What was it you said again?
It was it's my personal favorite.
There we go. Okay, because what you said,
it's not. You're
like,
no,
this is the greatest 30 for 30 of all time. I'm like,
nope,
what?
No, I ain't that dumb. Nope.
What would you consider the greatest? Because I've got a couple in my mind, but not that one. But
Last Dance, I think, has got to be.
I don't think Last Dance is considered a 30 for 30.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Because maybe, of course, I'll put that in there. But
I may be biased here, but I like 4 Days in October. But
that's pretty good.
I'm a little bit biased.
I'm on, and we usually do this topic during the summer on Rundown. I'm on Bo Knows, the Bo Jackson one, the 85 Bears.
Fab Five.
Fab Five, yes. Fab Five.
Personally, for me, it's between the U and Fab Five.
The U might be the best one. The U and the U Part 2 might be the best produced one. Yeah, that's in my top 5 for sure too. Yeah. Fab Five is actually, I'm glad Christian mentioned that, because I was sitting there thinking, which one am I forgetting? Fab Five is actually my favorite one. What else? I Hate Christian Leitner.
That's a good one. That one's a good one. The Steve
Catholics
Bartman
vs.
one.
Convicts.
I think it's hailing.
Catholics vs. Convicts was good. The Steve Bartman one. What was that one called? Catching Hell.
Yeah. So there's some good ones. There's some good ones. They just released one about the tuck rule that's really good. That's Tom Brady.
Yes, that was fantastic. And if nobody's seen it yet, we'll go to break after this. Speaking of significant 30 for 30s, Dream On, the first of this women's sports series thing that ESPN's going to have going on, about the 96 women's dream team.
Yeah.
Look, here's the story, in case you didn't watch the promos or don't know what happened. A, that was the greatest collection of women's basketball talent probably ever. And yes, Dawn Staley, head coach at South Carolina, played on that team and played for the now defunct Charlotte Sting of the WNBA. This is also your daily reminder that Charlotte had a WNBA team. Anyways.
Go Sting.
Go Sting!
It is hailing outside.
The NBA.
Just to let you know, if you're hearing that on the mic, it's like there's nickel-sized hail hitting the window right here in front.
Oh my God! Okay, yeah, I got an alert that there was a severe thunderstorm warning in Kernersville. So yeah,
it's bright and sunny over here. So
I haven't looked out my window yet, but I'm sure it's coming this way. Well, it's probably coming from either your direction or heading your direction, Christian. So either duck or
I know it's heading your way. It's probably going east. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Christian will be, to quote Blazing Saddles, reading from the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Duck.
If I lose power here in a bit, it's going to be because of the storm, because my lights just flickered. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so we're going to get in a break here in a second. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, Dream On. NBA Entertainment had 500 plus hours of footage following that team from their worldwide barnstorming tour to come back to Atlanta for those Olympics. I think Des froze.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, he's frozen in time. We're still live, so we'll keep going. NBA Entertainment did not release that footage to anybody, really. It had never been seen until it's been put in this 3-part documentary. But the NBA realized that there was serious possibility for at least some semblance of publicity here for the greatest collection of women's basketball talent of all time. Dez's power went out. So in lieu of it happening to me, we're going to say goodbye. Christian will recap the Cardinals Bo Sox showdown looming to come. We'll break that down next week. But in lieu of it happening to anybody else, we're going to go ahead and hop off here. Dez, be safe. Christian, you be safe. Severe weather coming in and heat waves everywhere. Just drink water and swim and
just be safe.
Just be safe. Don't die. Love you all. Be safe. We'll see you next week.